Managing multiple clients or large websites? Automate your SEO with Alley AI. Start your free trial now.
Taylor Swift is a link builder. There were rumors that she would get engaged. Our client said, let's give them a free wedding venue. And then we got them 50 links. That's digital PR.
Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
I'm going to try and do this without my notes. Hi, I'm Matt. And my passion is helping companies derive value from their first-party data. And there are 3 pillars to being able to do that. You need to get your first-party data out and connect it. And the way you can do that is by having identifiability in your data. Another way of doing that is making sure that users have consented to allow you to use that data. And the third one is the one we're going to talk about today, which is getting consistent data. And the way you do that is via a data layer. So, audience participation time. Hands up if you know what a data layer is. Yes, we're in a good place. Hands up if you've got one on your website. Fantastic, okay. So if you search online, these are the kind of things that you get. A data layer is a JavaScript object that lives on a web page. And I don't think that that's right. I think that's describing the output of a data layer. So if you imagine that children's toy, the one with the little shapes, a star shape and a square shape and a little crescent shape, and you hold that up, the JavaScript object is the little star that you're trying to push through the hole. The data layer is the filter, okay? Its purpose is to simplify and standardize data from multiple sources in a way that allows that data to be connected and used. So a JavaScript object is talking about the wrong thing. The interesting thing is the transformation of the data and the data schema that defines what that object should look like. And if you only talk about a JavaScript object, then you're limiting yourself to web. How do you get data consistency cross-platform? Android, iOS, they don't have a browser to render that JavaScript object for you. So if that's all you're describing your data layer as, you've already failed, because your data layer is supposed to bring data together and have it consistent cross-platform. Just gonna have a little drink. One of the things that you get when you play on stage with a guitar or you sing is you get to hide behind the microphone. So this is terrifying, but anyway, bear with me. So do you need one? And actually, I've added this slide quite late in the day. I trialed it with a few people and they said, well, you need to let people know if they actually need a data layer. Well, look, if you've got, let's say you've got a website and the storefront on your website is on one platform and then you push users out to a checkout that's on a different platform and you want to track products, how are you going to track products consistently? Because those 2 platforms are going to format that data differently unless you have a data layer. If you've got a website and you've got a mobile app, how are you going to join the data together from your website and your mobile app and then validate the performance on each of them unless you've got a data layer? That said, we've got a client who's a $100 billion a year food and beverages company. They don't have a data layer. They probably should, but most of their sites are brochureware, brand awareness, and so if they were going to have a data layer, it would be for things like promotions, so making sure that promotional data was tracked consistently. But by and large, they've got around, they managed to make $100 billion a year, so they're doing all right without a data layer. So what's the underpinning philosophy? This is I'm getting all pretentious now, that goes into your data layer. Well, the main reason I see data layer projects fail is because they treat it as a technical exercise. They don't get into the detail of why it exists in the first place. They just dive straight into technically how are we going to deliver it. And that's kind of like if you're building a car and you say, well, it's got to be green, it's got to be sporty, it's got to have in-car, and oh crap, I forgot the steering wheel. It's like, you go back to the fundamentals. It's got to have wheels, it's got to have doors, it's got to have a steering wheel. And fundamentally, human interaction is actually quite simple. So let's take this conversation as an example. I'm providing an input to you. Hopefully you're having a think about it. Maybe not. Depends how much coffee or tea you've had. But you're performing some sort of decision, and then maybe at the end, you'll provide me some views back. Okay, so that's it. at its most basic level. Everything else is context. And devices that we use, digital devices that we use, they lean into this. So look at the phone that I brought up on stage with me. It's a flat screen. All I can do is I can tap on it. Then that tap can be interpreted by whatever platform I'm on, and then that platform can provide a view back to me. So if the thing that you're building for your website, like a chatbot or a login area or whatever, a checkout, is going to work on some form of digital device, then it's going to lean into some sort of input and some sort of output at an event level. Everything else is context. There's loads of context. I built a data layer for an electrical retailer, and it's the most complicated thing imaginable. Now, I tried to get them to simplify it, but they wanted lots and lots of data, and in the end, you have to deliver what your clients ask for. But still, very, very complex electrical retailer, we only did that with 5 events: input, view, and then some business level events. So something to describe products, something to describe baskets, something to describe orders. That's it. We delivered the entire data layer based on those 5 events, because it's defining, the data layer is defining the conversation between the company and the user, and it's defining it through the medium of a digital device. So if you're going to simplify and standardize, lean into those 2 key events, input and output. Can't really describe the decision because that's the thinking you're doing in your brain. We don't have access to that yet. That leans into the next thing, which is who's going to build and maintain your data layer. So now you've worked out that it's actually very, very simple, and you can deliver your entire data layer on a couple of events. Who's going to build and maintain it? Because actually your data layer is also a resourcing solution. So let's get into it. Is anyone here an analyst, digital analytics specialist? Hands up, anybody? Fantastic. Anybody does implementation? So GTM, yeah, fantastic. Okay, great. You guys are in your implementation teams. I imagine there's like 1 of you, maybe 2 for the whole company. I used to work for Sky. It was me doing the whole thing with a few guys based out with Accenture in India. And that was all the apps, all the different websites, Sky News, Sky Sports, Sky.com, like the whole thing. I was doing the whole schmear. So low resourced, but good horizontal matrix. So in terms of the teams that you interact with, you're interacting with every single team. So that's great, but there's not many of you. And as an example, let's say you've got 4 platforms, Android, iOS, and then 2 websites, one that's like flat HTML and one that's based on a CMS. And you want to collect 100 data points across those websites. You want to do lots and lots of transformations, and you need to fit into different consent groups for different vendors. I had a little maths thing in my notes, but I've forgotten what it is. But anyway, I came up with 32,000 data transformations. Now, if you're the only implementation person, you cannot do all of those data transformations yourself. So who do we have to help us? Is anyone in here a developer? Yes. 2 of you, I think. Fantastic. So development teams are usually more highly resourced. Fantastic, they've got people. But data isn't their top priority. They've got to keep the website up and running. They've got to make sure it's fast. They've got to keep the app up and running. They've got to make sure it doesn't fall over. And they're not necessarily in a horizontal matrix. They'll be in vertical squads with different product owners, different priorities. So data might be the priority for your iOS team, or it might be one of the priorities, but it might not be the priority for the CMS team. So what does that mean? It means that when you're building this nice and simple data layer, your implementation team are going to define it. They're going to own the schema, but they're not going to build it. Your development team are going to build it. So for God's sake, make it easy for your development team to build, because they've got 500 other things that they need to be doing too. So how can you do that? The first thing you can do is have a drink. And then when you've calmed down, you bake your data layer into the underlying platform. You automate it. It's going to be standardized, it's going to be simple, and it's going to be baked into what the platform is doing. It's going to be automated. So that, and this is what we did with our electrical retailer, where we did the very complicated data layer, by and large, it builds itself. You're going to make it centralized. So if you can, if you've got multiple platforms being delivered from the same underlying technology, sourcing data from the same product management system, sourcing data from the same headless CMS, then build that data layer on the server side and deliver it to those platforms so that they have consistency. The more transformations you do once it reaches the platform, the more deviation you're going to get in your data. So try to deliver it from a central location if you can. Make it modular. So the way we built the very complicated data layer for, again, our electrical retailer was we did lots and lots of reusable modules. So for example, if I want a timestamp against my content related data layer, that timestamp object is the same timestamp object that I also have against my product data layer object. So you're reusing the timestamp. Do that throughout so that the actual schema itself is just reusable modules. Lean into developer principles, essentially. Have things that are centralized, have things that are modular, and you can reuse them. And tie those modules to components. So this is an example of, it's our website, but which doesn't have a data layer. But I might have a schema component that defines what buttons should look like. Tie that schema component to the button so that if that button gets taken and reused somewhere else in the website, the schema goes with it. And we had a scenario with the client that we built the data layer for, where when we delivered this, when it went live for the first time, we spent more time debugging one tag that didn't use the data layer and was pulling data from somewhere else. We spent more time debugging that than their entire checkout process from end to end, because the checkout process used the data layer, it used the standardized thing that we built for them. This one tag didn't, and we had to debug that tag, wasted loads of time debugging it, because their development team, for the most part, can take these components, these reusable components that they used to build their website, they can build a brand new journey using these components, and the data objects have come with them. And the thing that extracts the information from those data objects is also standardized and centralized. And so your data layer is 99% complete before anyone from the low-resourced implementation teams even had to look at it. We do still look at it just to make sure it isn't broken, but the majority of the build is already done. And then make it granular. So this really is, it's more about making it reflect what the underlying platform's doing. Don't push loads and loads of data transformations onto your development team, apart from the transformations required to bring the data into the data layer schema that's been designed. But for example, if one of your stakeholders wants product ID and product name concatenated together with an underscore, you do that. Don't get your development team to do that. Otherwise, they're going to have to maintain loads and loads of redundant technical debt, and they don't need that because they've got 500 other things to do. So make your data layer as granular as you can, and then you can combine it in any way you like. And then the last thing is put it to work. So your schema that you design, as if you're an implementation specialist, or that you're going to get your implementation team to design if you're a business stakeholder, it doesn't need to live in Excel. This is an example from one of our clients. The data layer schema is a JSON object that we created. It's in JSON schema format. And what you can do is you can then build, there's publicly available scripts that if you come talk to me afterwards, I can point you towards, where you can send the data layer objects as they're generated on the page or on the app or on the set-top box or wherever, and you send them to this endpoint and they will be validated against your schema. And so you're holding up that little filter, that's your schema, it's real time, it's working for you. You're holding up that little filter with the star shape and the crescent shape and the square, and if someone tries to send you a hexagon, get out of here, it gets rejected, go away. They get an error returned to whatever system they're using. This is a console error to the developer console, and it tells them what they've done wrong. And so again, your low-resourced implementation team, one person, two people, isn't getting bombarded with requests for why is this thing not working. And also your data quality is maintained because your development team, as they build, can validate that they're doing it right, because they want to do it right. They're not getting it wrong on purpose. So if you make it easy to build in the first place, you make it modular, you make it baked into your platform so that for the most part it builds itself, and then as a last resort, you have this filter to reject anything that isn't working properly. You've given your development team the tools that they need to do their job. Thank you. That is my X, my LinkedIn, and this deck. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.